sabes que no la mereces. Hoy tengo que hacerte mi mujer y lo sé muy bien. Ven, vamos a acercarnos para ver cómo es. Esto de rozarnos piel con piel. Hoy quiero que te sientas mi mujer una y otra vez. Tu piel es dulce como la miel y sabes que no la mereces. Hoy tengo que hacerte mi mujer y lo sé muy bien.
Ladies and gentlemen, here it is, the most listened to radio show on the planet. Even the other stations are tuned in too.
The views, opinions, and representations expressed on the Night Dreams Talk Radio Network and its website are those of the hosts, guests, and participants, and are not necessarily those of or endorsed by the network, its affiliated stations and broadcasts, the management, other hosts, or advertisers of the network. The shows found on the Night Dreams Talk Radio Network can, but do not necessarily, promote any particular lifestyle, belief, religion, political affiliation, or other personal practice. These shows are for entertainment purposes only and are not intended to treat, diagnose, and or claim any cure of disease or condition or give any medical or legal advice.
If you would like to hear Night Dreams Talk Radio on your local radio station, let them know. Tell them to check out www.nightdreamstalkradio.com, and thank you.
You can advertise your business on Night Dreams Talk Radio, and you will be heard worldwide. Why not contact us at nightdreamstalkradio@gmail.com. Your Saturday paranormal psychic and ghost hunter on Night Dreams Talk Radio Network, James Creachbaum.
Hello, everyone, and coming to you live from our secret compound. This is James Creachbaum, and I'm filling in for Gary Anderson tonight. He'll be back with us on Monday, nothing to fear. And my guest tonight is Olav Phillips. Olav, how you doing tonight, buddy?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
Not bad, not bad. So, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am the owner and publisher of Paranoia Magazine. I've written a couple of books, The Secret Space Age and the Cold War in Space. I've written a lot of articles for my magazine, Paranoia. We have a new magazine that's going to be coming out called Lost Horizons. I don't know. What else do you want to know?
That's a good bit right there.
Yeah. I'll tell you, I'm always terrible at bios.
Well,
I'm really crappy at that.
Well, you do a lot of reports and stories on UFOs and abductions and stuff like that, correct?
I do. I try. As a researcher, if you focus on, there's kind of a thing that exists where some people made their entire careers on one thing, and that's good. I mean, that's good for them. They become massive experts on this one thing. But I try to spread it around. So, I do a wide range of stuff.
Mm-hmm. What's the most recent reports that you've gotten that's pretty intriguing?
Actually, from a UFO point of view, the one that I covered relatively, it's not new, but I don't think it got a lot of attention, was, a couple months back, there was a radio interception that these guys, amateur radio operators in Russia, intercepted with a MiG-29. I think it was a MiG-29. That was chasing some sort of an object out, way out in the frontier, and they were coming up along a border. I don't know what border. I don't know where precisely it took place, but they chased something. This guy chased something for quite some time.
Oh, wow.
And it was very interesting.
Yeah,
it was interesting for a lot of reasons.
Well, yeah, it could be a lot of things going on there with that. You never heard much, no follow-up on that then, I guess.
No. I had it translated by two different people. One was a Russian who translated it, and I also had it translated by a wonderful guy who had learned, had been taught Russian in an aerospace company. So he was kind enough to translate it as well. And it was interesting, the translation was the same, which is what I was hoping for. But it's an interesting moment in time, watching or listening, I guess, to them reacting to this high-speed object, darting around, and this guy trying to follow it, and how the zone anti-aircraft command tried to deal with it. So it was fascinating. It was definitely fascinating to listen to.
Oh yeah, I can imagine. I would love to hear that. Well, I'd have to have a translator, I guess, but yeah. But you could still probably hear.
I have a transcript.
We could probably hear in their voices, how they were feeling. I'm sure.
Yeah, you can hear in the pilot's voice, a mixture of confusion, fear. It's like I said, and there's a lot of confusion back at the command center where they had kind of punched him through to. It was also very interesting to me because we do a podcast, and we had interviewed this guy, and we were talking about Russians, and this is more conspiratorial than UFOs, but he was saying that the Soviet Union had fallen, and my point to him was the Soviet Union as an entity, right, as a political ideology may have fallen, but it is very much alive in the oligarchs, and he contested that point, and I actually pointed out to him the transcript of this communication, which is not very old, and the the pilot is referring to the colonel that he's talking to, I believe is a colonel, as Comrade Colonel, and the colonel is referring to him as Comrade Major. So although they're no longer Soviets, they definitely call each other comrade. So I thought that was fascinating.
Yeah, they're still comrades, though, huh?
Yeah, but it was interesting for a lot of reasons. But I think that's the most recent one. A lot of the UFO stuff that I've seen is it very much looks like exotic aircraft. There seems to be a rise in activity. I mean, obviously not right now because we were having the meteor storm, but there I think has been an increase in overall, sightings of weird stuff in the sky. And a couple weeks ago, I went out to a spot that I go to that's about 250 miles due west of Area 51. It's in California, but you're way up there at like 6,000, 7,000 feet, and you get a pretty good, if something's going to take off and fly, you get a pretty good kind of idea of what's going on. And I saw something rather interesting climbing out of there very fast. So, they're definitely still doing stuff.
Oh, definitely. I've always thought the sightings of the triangles going back 30 years or better, I always thought that was one of ours anyway.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I actually saw one.
Oh, you did?
I've seen two in my life. I've had two interactions with a triangle. And the first was when I was in college in the late 90s. And the second was a couple of years ago. But yeah, there at least one that I saw pretty up close. You could see the rivets. I mean, it was human. This thing was not alien.
Wow. Yeah, because I always thought, I know there's a lot of reports, they go way back, even, I think Belgium had started, there was sightings of that black triangle, and then I don't remember the exact year, but I know there was a big, police were chasing them in Illinois and Indiana, I believe. Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, at one point in Illinois, they had it was a small town, they had the entire police force chasing it. Yeah, one thing that's, go ahead. No, I was just going to say, yeah, you're right. I remember that gave us some credibility a little bit more than usual,
Yeah, a lot of the ones that were seen in the 90s, they were predominantly seen in Europe. And one of the interesting things that they would do, and it actually makes sense if you think about it, is that they would fly along motorways. In England, they call freeways motorways. And so basically they would fly it at a medium altitude, following the motorways, the freeways toward various points. And they would stop and check out like nuclear reactors and stuff like that. And the reason that that's interesting is because, for pilots, if they're not sure where they are, they will fly along freeways because the freeways tend to connect cities. So it was very interesting that at least in one case that this thing was flying along the freeway. The ones from the 90s though, they're a little different. They actually had some weird behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
On multiple occasions, they were actually sighted over graveyards, and they were scanning. They had a light that was actually like moving through the graveyard.
Oh wow!
So yeah,
that would be creepy. I've never heard that report before. Now, where was that at? Where was that scene at?
That was in England.
Oh, was it England?
Yeah, it was in England. Yeah. The ones now, I think you see for the most part. That I don't know. That's just weird. Maybe somebody's making a joke. I mean, you know how pilots can be. But
yeah.
We had an incident here in California down south where they're out by China Lake, where a couple of Marine Corps pilots were making very interesting shapes by flying.
Oh my! Yeah, I got to ask you another. I got to ask. Yeah, it is. I got to ask you a question. Do you remember? Where was it? I think it was in Chile. There was a video of a UFO, and it was putting off a plume. I think it was 2010 in Santiago, Chile. Oh, yeah. Do you recall that video? What's your insights on that? And that was peculiar as all get out.
Yeah, that's been seen a few times, and if you go back, oh goodness, what's the name of that one? The Shag Harbor incident, where the thing let out some kind of a plume, and then it jettisoned a bunch of slag into the water. So yeah, there have been times where the UFOs they will have like a plume, like a smoke trail, or they'll eject like slag material out the back.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say because remember, when you're dealing with UFOs, right? On one hand, you're dealing with exotic aircraft. This is stuff made by Lockheed or whatever, and they're flying around at high speed. Maybe it's a replacement for the SR-71, the Aurora. Who knows, right? The TR-3. I mean, it could be a lot of things. Although a few years ago, I wrote a series of articles about some that were seen that appeared to have a new kind of engine in it. But on the other hand, you've got these other weird ones where they don't behave the way you'd expect, and they don't behave in ways that seem to work with the laws of physics that we understand. And the first triangles I ever saw in the late 90s, I was in a little town called Dixon in California. It's kind of a ranch town, and out by Sacramento. And we watched them for an hour. These lights at high altitude, probably 12, 14 of them, having some kind of a dogfight. And they were making squares and triangles and circles and rectangles, right angle turns. I mean, stuff that defies physics. I mean, well, it doesn't defy physics, I guess, but it would have killed a human pilot. And then that's when I saw the triangles. Two of them split off, and they went down to a pretty low altitude, maybe 500 feet. And there were these two radio masts that were probably maybe 10 or 20 miles apart. And they were doing laps. They were doing like wind sprints racing between the two towers. And then at one point, they crossed the closer tower and were heading our direction. And at that point, we kind of looked at each other. We're like, yeah, we're leaving.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. There was a comment about some I don't want to get probed. So I was like, okay, we're out of here. But yeah, they did that for a while.